got here? This is your setup.
This is my setup. This is everything.
Is this what do you see your setup growing into?
I'd love to have like a studio.
Okay. So like that room over there?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Wow. All right. It's my voice.
Can you hear yourself in there?
Yeah. I feel like I'm at Joe Rogan's basement.
You want to get a little closer?
Nope.
Move the chair closer.
I'm straddling the table.
You are?
Yeah. Your setup needs work. Okay. Now
I had this table.
Okay. I'm full straddle. I'm in here.
You're a legs in front of you kind of guy.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I'm out to the side.
I'm not the largest man. I don't know. I kind of fit in where I have to be. So thank you for having me. Do we do rock, paper, scissors? Because I've been looking forward to that. Because I won once already. So
you did. So
right.
Welcome to Ross, Paper, Scissors.
Yep.
Episode 3. We got my good friend Chris Crocilla here. And if you want to rock, paper, scissors off the bat.
No, I want to get in it because I have like my nerves are high right now because I've never done a podcast. So settling in with a rock, paper, scissors might be helpful. First,
all right.
First comes the
So for the record,
yep.
Chris challenged me last time he cut my hair to a rock, paper, scissors off, and he smoked me.
Smoked me.
So
yeah.
So you could just do it from here.
All right, but my hands are clammy, so don't touch my hands.
We'll just do it from here.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, and shoot. 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 Fuck.
Oh, that was a scissor.
2 out of 3?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Rock, paper, scissors, and shoot. Fuck.
Wow. For the record, the first like 6 signals, whatever that was the same. We did the same one.
We did the same thing every time.
Great.
But he won. All right. So I think I've only won once.
Well, that's
on my own podcast. Okay. But so yeah.
For the record, if we're doing records, right?
Yeah.
It's Crocilla.
Because you're Italian.
My whole life. Well, Al Pacino's Pacino, and no one says Pacino.
Well, no, right? I totally get you. I'd always honestly heard other people say Crocilla, and I've never heard you correct them.
That's what's been going on my whole life. It's been Crocilla for my dad. Mom's been saying Crocilla, so I'm like, oh.
No, the C in Italian is chi.
Chi.
Well,
all right, cool, clear.
Yeah, because I have a good friend his name is Talercio, and it wasn't until like after high school he's like, yo guys, my name's actually Talercio.
Right.
So we were like, oh okay, yeah, but everyone just calls him Joey T. Anyways.
I had the same thing. Crow. That's why.
Crow
came
Crow.
In. Everyone got confused when I started correcting them. They're like, now you're gonna start with something new.
Crocilla.
So at the wedding, I was like, you know what? This is when it's time to pronounce Crocilla again, once and for all, and they did, because wife was a Cecchio, so it kind of fit.
Cecchio.
Yeah.
Good transition for her. Super
I
easy.
So.
I did the same thing. Nicole has the same initials, the same. She went from Pantino to Papel.
Yeah. Easy transition.
Easy. I feel bad for people like my mom. She had my dad's last name, which is Papel. Pretty simple. And my stepdad's last name is Zolotolo.
It's long.
Zlotolow.
Ooh, I got one. My stepmom's last name was Gulishevskaya, and now she's a Crocilla.
Say that one more time.
Gulishevskaya. She's from Russia.
Nice.
She would appreciate me saying it in that manner.
Like yes.
Yep.
Well, I wonder how Zolotolo was supposed. Zolotolo is Eastern European, Jewish. So it's got to have some in there somewhere. I'm sure.
All right, it's in there. Well, we're clear on pronunciations.
So Here we are. Here's Chris Crow. Just a brief introduction before we get into it. I typed up some notes so I remember to say things.
Cool.
Chris Crow, I've known for. I mean, technically we went to high school together, but we didn't know each other in high school. But you were a barber at the barber shop that I went to during high school. So it's been we'll just say over a decade. Successful entrepreneur, business owner, barber, decorated barber at that. He's got plenty of trophies. He's won national barber battle titles. When I asked him what his proudest accomplishments were, he said proud husband and father. And I know that marriage and fatherhood is definitely something that you would look forward to, and you worked your ass off to get to where you are, and you continue to grow. You're very much in that growth mindset.
Thank you, Ross.
And then, and that's really it. So just so everyone can get a grip on who you are, what is the Chris Crocilla story? Where did you start from? Grow up? What was it like? Your dad, your mom, all that good stuff.
All right, we can start. So this is a session or a podcast? What are we doing here?
This is a podcast.
Okay,
but
I just wanted to make sure, just to clarify.
Well, the point of this is like I want us to understand who you are better, and then share perspectives, stories, things like
Sure.
that, so people listen and be like, "Oh shit."
I'm not opposed to a session. I'm just asking. I just want to clarify.
I just want to know things. I mean, when you people who know, like, you have a hairdresser or a barber that like you go to for years, you do become pretty good friends with them, and you do share a lot of stories.
Of course, yeah.
But I mean, I know a lot about like your childhood, your brother, your dad, the hair salon, and all that. I mean, I know a lot of that, but for the people listening,
For the people.
for the people.
So yeah, I grew up in Smithtown, kind of just with a great family, and Pops was a hairstylist, owned a salon. Mom stayed home with the kids. It was me and my brother. 4 years the elder he was, and still is. Still, we have a cool connection. And then, you know, what happens to families? Sometimes they get divorced, right? So that was the start. When I think of my story, I think of that. Like, I go, oh well, I was born. I was like a little boy, and I had fun. I had a good life, great life, and we moved into Smithtown probably like kindergarten. Little Cracker Jack box in Center Ridge, and we moved to Smithtown in like a little dollhouse, and I was like, oh, we're doing it. Dad's doing it, something, and Mom's holding it down. Little did I know they had some troubles going on, right? And that's, now that I'm married, I get it. I get it. So that was the beginning, was that kind of turmoil of the, all right, Pops kind of had his thing going on. He's married to, and I love that lady, so here we are. I hope they're not going to listen to this. And I'm talking with my hands. I wish this was being recorded. My hands started on the table, and now they're up in the air. So yeah.
We'll get that for one of your later episodes. I'm going to get
cool.
cameras.
No, I want to ease into it because the hands were too high. I want
Okay.
to bring them down. Yeah. So that's like my story. Is like parents broke up, and it was tumultuous. It was shitty, and they showed it. They showed everything to us. So yeah, I knew when like you said about the fatherhood, I'm like, I need to do it better. No disrespect to how they did it. They did a great job.
No, I think
I'm
everyone
saying it thinking like they're gonna hear this, and I have to make sure that they know that I love them and that
Yeah.
they did the best they could. Right?
A lot of people feel the same way. I felt the same way. My parents
Okay.
got divorced when I was 1.
Wow. And you had that story,
I don't have any.
but that was the story.
Yeah, that's
right?
yeah. I mean, I don't have any memories really of my parents ever being together. So my relationship with my dad has always been kind of weird. In recent years, definitely tenfold better. But
Great.
angry, angsty teenager Ross, like not a happy camper
Oh.
in any relationship, basically. But
Well, that's where we meet. I feel like
Yeah.
because yes, we've met in the barbershop, and I was how old are you? Like 2 years
20,
younger,
26.
3 years younger than I am. Like we're in the same area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then these stories is what bring you together and go, oh wait, you had some of the same experiences that I had, which were maybe not the best,
Right.
you know. But people know you now as not that person, and I think people know
Right.
me not as that person either.
Right.
So yeah, that was the beginning. It moved into barbering, which kind of took my focus off of the bullshit. Can I say that? I'll say
Say
it less.
whatever the
I'll say
F
it as
you want.
little as possible.
Although I did get a friend.
Right.
You should stop cursing so
Right.
much. I'm like,
Let's be mindful of anybody that has that feeling.
Fuck.
Shit. No. So the barbering thing. Pops is a hairstylist, so I grew up working at the salon a little bit, and I just knew that there was no men in Smithtown West High School cutting hair at this point. And I'm like, I think if I did that, people might need it, and it could create something, because school was just not for me. And as I'm going through the story, I'm looking at you, I'm telling the story, and there's so many things that happened like in life, right, that you don't even remember. And as you tell a story, you can like remember some things. So it's kind of funny to tell a story. But in the story was like a lot of failure. Like school was failed. I was into athletics, but never. I told a story last night at the table about how I never scored a point in any sports, but mad penalties, and I was fast. So there was like all this effort, but it never landed anywhere great. So barbering for me was like, oh, I can actually do it. It starts with this line around the head, and then it grows, and people look at you like, what, you can put that line in that head? You're going to get that out? And that's how you're thinking it. Like, you're going to get that line out? And then it grows into this nice transition, and you're like, wow, I just drew something. So that's when I started to love the barbering thing. And ironically, Mommy, I don't call her that, but at the time, I was young, so I'm referring. I was just like crazy. And I heard your first episode on this podcast, our rock, paper, scissors, Ross, paper, scissors. And you were talking to your buddy about like your upbringings and like, I got lost. Or just talking about, because there's so many stories that come up for me that it's hard to stay on to the track of what happened.
You're talking about your mom something.
Mom, yes, thank you. I know it. I know the story. She kicked me out of the house because I was bugging out. I wanted money for a haircut. I'm like, Mom, I need a haircut. I know you get child support. Like, yeah, I'm being very transparent. This is great. I know you get child support money. Like, I would appreciate it if I could get like a haircut. Maybe I was not being as sweet as I'm saying it now. Big thing. I had a little dog at the time. She was like, you guys have to leave. That's when I transitioned to live with Pops. And but the barbering thing was kicking off for me. And that was like that funny little story that's like, wow, and now, I cut hair all the time. So all I do is cut hair. And I can get my own money. So I transitioned, and at about 19 from Pops, me and him had the same kind of story. Clashed. I punched your mic. We clashed, just like me and my mom clashed. This was like a theme, clashing. And then he was like, you got to go. Same thing, had the puppy still. We left. And it's been a crazy since. It's been crazy since. It's crazy to recall those memories right now because I don't. I'm so like, what's next? Like, where's the business going? Like, what's going to happen with the family? How big's the family going to be? That to think about this shit is actually emotional. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. So I'm going through all these feelings at the moment at this fold-up table. And it's great. And I do go to therapy, actually. So therapy is has become a big part of my life because, like, you can't hold these things in like I had been doing, right? And now, so skip forward, Pops kicked me out, and then I was about 20 years old, and I've been hopping around since, and I found my wife. And that's when my life really started. Like, cut all the like not trying to party no more. I got this amazing woman. Like, can't even say enough about her. I think you know that too. And
she's pretty freaking awesome.
Pretty freaking awesome.
She's a super sweet angel.
It's funny. Like, my buddies are like, dude, you were kind of a dick, like, a lot. And your wife is the sweetest person in the world. I'm like, I know. And it makes me not, it makes me really realize what I have and know who I want to actually be because she sees that in me. So it's pretty dope.
I love that when I go to your barbershop, which for those of you who don't know, they bought and then built out this magnificent barber/salon. So it's like the front part is salon, the back part's barbershop, but they're two totally different vibes, but it's hybrid. Really awesome. It's like a hybrid. Ooh. But yeah, so basically I think every time I go there for a haircut and I sit in your chair and we're talking up for like a 5 minutes, maybe Victoria, I don't know, she like hears my voice or looks at the schedule or something and she comes up, oh, hey Ross, how's it going? How's Nicole? Blah, blah, blah.
Big fan of yours. Yeah.
Yeah. She's great.
Yeah. Actually, I'm recalling since we're doing the memory thing, you and Nicole had given me a gift card once for like $100 to go get dinner at Prime. Do you remember that? I think that
Merry
happened.
Christmas.
Yeah. It was like something, but it was kind of off. It wasn't really Christmas. It was just a really nice gesture. And I got like an $84 steak. And
nice.
The bill was still like pretty expensive.
It was an open table gift card.
Yes, it was.
That's what it was.
And we both went. It was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm pretty sure. I hope I thanked you by now. But.
Probably. I mean.
Yeah. Nah, I did. I definitely did. So yeah, that's my whole story to everyone that's ever going to listen to this podcast. There's a lot of things in between those little stories and after those stories. And the business part. So now like the barbering thing took off for me. A lot of people were interested in what I was doing for some reason. Everyone was like, "Oh, Chris is good. He's got it. His dad cuts hair. He must be good." And that's what happened.
To be honest, here's what I thought, which I don't know. I've probably said this before, but like, I didn't know of. I like knew of you. I didn't know who you were in high school, but you're always walking around with a fresh cut, earrings, big diamond earrings, because I had that too. Cool. But I remember because you had started cutting hair at Two Kings, and you started doing like really cool like shapes and stuff in people's heads, and I very specifically remember seeing you do a tear like a water droplet design in the back of someone's head, and I was like, that's so freaking cool. I'm like, how does that dude fade a teardrop into someone's head? And I just thought it was the coolest thing, and I was like, no one else is doing something like that. I was like, he's a pretty cool guy.
Right on.
But even at that time, you never. I don't think you may have cut my hair like one time. It was the other Chris with the, I always forget his full name. CMB with the scar on his face?
Christopher Michael Ballas.
There you go. So he would cut my hair. And then you left Two Kings and went to Mike's Custom Cuts, right? Next?
Yep. Shout out to Mike's Custom Cuts.
And
Guy
then
put me on.
And then it was you and CB who cut my hair depending on who was available. It was mostly you. And then
he was there like part-time, I remember.
Yeah, and then that's when, because he was the newest guy there.
New guy.
But I remember looking at him, and he's always like this.
That's so good. Oh my God, that's so
with the
good.
eyebrow up, and he always had a fresh cut. He always had the hat on, and he always wore gloves. And I always thought that was so interesting because at the time, not a lot of people were wearing gloves. And he was like, "Nah, man, it's what you got to do." Blah blah blah. This, that, hair, blah blah, whatever. But
that's so good.
But I think that's when, I mean, I had to have been like a teenager then, still at that point in time, and that's when I think we started really like becoming friends because we would have like deep philosophical conversations.
It was the Volkswagen too, though.
Volkswagen, yes, because I had my Volkswagen. Hi, Mom.
Hello. How are you?
This is my friend Chris. This is my barber, Chris.
Hi, nice to meet you.
She needs to say hi to the dog, understandably so.
Well, it'd be rude if I didn't say hi.
But yeah, so, and then we would have, so the Volkswagen is what started. I was like, yo, that Mark IV silver Golf, like, is pretty dope. I got a Mark VI black Golf outside, and then we, like, bullshit about our Volkswagen.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a lot of really good friends that our friendship started on Volkswagen.
Wow. That's powerful.
But, yeah.
I always make the joke, like, I don't have spacers in my ears, so I was a pretender. I didn't know anything about the car. I just knew I liked the way it looked, and I kind of thought the guys in the club were cool. Like, Volkswagen guys were kind of cool. They didn't, like, shower that much. They, like, rode bikes also, right? I showered a lot, but they had this, like, vibe. It's, like, etchy little...
Well, Ross Paper Scissors, I can't take credit. I'll shout him out again. Alex Law is my friend who came up with the name.
Great name.
Our friendship also spawned from the fact that he drove a red Volkswagen Jetta, same year as your Golf.
Did he know about it? Did he know many things about his Volkswagen?
He's a car guy. He, like, worked in car dealerships and worked on his own car. So,
cool.
So when he was like, yo, he said it to me. He was like, yo, dope Volkswagen. And then I was like, yeah. And then he was like, what do you got done to it? I know it's not stock. And then we started going at it. So.
And you knew a little bit.
Yeah. And he was one of the guys his was like slam sitting on the floor, uncomfortably low. But it was like cool to do that. I don't think a lot of people really do that too much anymore.
My car that I had is still around. My brother has it. And he's like kind of keeping it to like when he gets that thing the way he wants, he's going to have it on the road and it's going to be beautiful. But yeah, it's like all the way low, but probably not on purpose. Like, shouldn't be that low.
Something's broken in there.
Right. But it has subs. Yeah, it's a great car. That was fun. So, yeah, that's how we kind of met. That was Mike's Custom Cuts. Shout out to Mike's again.
Mike's Custom Cuts. He's still doing good.
He's doing awesome. We have this really cool little thing. You asked me to tell you some things about myself. You had asked me that. And one of the things was like Mike had come up for me because he had given me something really cool. Like, I was working under him almost. He had that. There was like this vibe of like, you're the next guy. You know, if I'm not here, you go to Chris. And it takes a lot of time and effort to get someone to actually feel that way about you, right? And then that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to leave this place and go do my own thing. Not because of any, like, I don't like Mike. It was just like, how my dad owns a salon. I've always said I would own something just because it was a story I had told myself, right? And I always didn't really take direction well. I didn't listen well.
Same.
So to work for someone wasn't the best. But I worked well with Mike. I think he didn't give me much direction. He kind of let me be free. Appreciate that. But at that point, and that's when I met Chris. Me and Chris had met, and we formed this cool relationship kind of based on our foundation of Christianity. That was kind of our friendship. We're like, oh, you like go to church? Like, yeah, me too. It's cool. And because it wasn't cool in the barbershop to like go to church at 22. I don't know how old I was, 23. But my foot was always half in something else. Like, I was going to church, but I was really still hanging out and doing things maybe that weren't the best for church. But, I mean, are there standards for church? I hope not. Like, that's what church should be for, right? So I found my way through a really great church called True North, and we have also connected through that.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah. I think you might have been the person that told me about True North. Maybe.
I don't know.
Because I went to...
A lot of people go.
Because when I met Pastor Mike, he was at a church way out west in Belmore, and then he had left and gone back to Indiana. I was like, crap, like, what's a good church anymore? And then I went to Grace Church in Smithtown, which was great, but it wasn't really my vibe. It's a little more old school.
I went there, yeah.
It's a little more old school, but I dig it. Like, and it's got that very loyal congregation. I remember my social studies teacher from middle school, Mr. Smith, was there, and he like worked for the church, which that was cool. But it just wasn't my vibe. And then
Did you go by yourself?
I went with Nicole.
Okay.
And we went there a few times, handful of times, and we had friends that had gone there as well. Pastor Scott, great guy. But then we had, I guess it might have been you that told me about True North, and you're like, yo, mad cool, good vibes, good music, big warehousey theater type vibes, like whatever. And I was like, all right. And then we drove out there, wherever that was. That was way out east. That's like past Ronkonkoma.
It's like Bohemia
or something.
Yep.
And then I was like, yo, this is pretty sweet. And then I actually
killer.
brought some of my friends there that were part of that same. Actually, you know what? They didn't meet Pastor Mike, but they eventually, I think maybe because they came to True North, became part of the launch team that launched V1.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was Ozzy, Darian, and Nicole, different Nicole, Ryan Hayward. Ryan Hayward's always part of the crew.
Shout out to Ryan Hayward.
Shout out Ryan Hayward. He was always part of the crew. But yeah, I think that was, I feel like you might have been the one that
Wow.
planted that seed.
That's really cool. Well, that seed was planted into me. So a customer was like, hey, he was like, really cool. It's so weird. These memories are like so faded because I've definitely done my things in my past. So here we are today. But this guy, he came in my chair. I cut him for a little while. And he was like, yeah, telling me about his Italian history growing up in the city. Basically, he was very affiliated, but kind of got out of that life and started going to church. That was his story. And I kind of understood it. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Like, a family guy now. And he told me about True North. And I went there, and I happened to see him. And it was like this, and I went by myself. I was kind of in search, very much so. And that was True North. Yeah, great. I don't go anymore. Not for any reason. The last time I went, it's a terrible memory. That we went to see the nursery because we were about to have a baby, and it smelled like poop. And Victoria definitely was like, "Nah." I was kind of like, "Is that what it's supposed to smell like?"
Nah.
It was a lot of poop, but yeah, don't do church much. But so it's interesting because I didn't know that much of you. Like, for me, the church thing was like ingrained. Like, you go to church, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for you, what is that? Something you were raised
I didn't
in, or
grow
did you
up
just decide
going to
you
church.
and Nicole wanted to go check churches out?
I didn't grow up going to church. To me, the month of December just meant three things: my birthday, Christmas, and Hanukkah, because my dad's Jewish. So my dad's non-practicing Jew. My mom, non-practicing Greek, Roman, Orthodox, whatever the heck she considers herself. And so I didn't grow up. I literally never went to church. My only experience going to church was like going to church for like a wedding or something, or a christening. That was it.
What made you want to go?
I was lost, definitely lost
what way,
teenager, depressed,
Okay.
Searching for something, meaning, purpose. I remember a period of my life, probably like 16, 17, 18, 19-ish. That whole window was basically my life was like go to work, go to school, party, and hang out with my toxic girlfriend and then do it all over again. And that was just my daily day-to-day life for years. And I remember there was one point where I was literally in my basement because there'd be some times where I literally just didn't want to hang out with anyone. I'm a pretty good introvert. I love being alone.
Same.
I was like on my computer and then I was just playing Xbox for a few hours. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, what am I doing? Like I had these plans. I was like, oh, like maybe I'll join the military. Maybe I'll be a police officer. Like I want to help people. I want to do something that can help people in some way, shape, or form, whatever. And it was when I was 19 is when I met Anthony Spark through mutual friends, and we hit it off. He's a really great guy. We just became friends. And through him, I met other people who were much more successful than he is. And I started listening to that language because that language of having purpose and moving towards something and success, it's generic language, but it's universal. Whether it's from the Bible, whether it's from a book, John Maxwell, whatever, it's universal. And I remember hearing these things on little snippets, and they would drill into my head, and I'd write it down, or I'd screenshot a quote on Instagram or some crap. And then one day I said, you know what, maybe I should like go to church. Because like I feel like I would hear people talk like, thanks to my success, I give it to God or something like that. Or I'd see pro players doing stuff like that. And I was like, maybe there's something to that. And then I had actually asked Anthony, I was like, hey, I want to go to church. Like, what should I do? And he was like, just come to my church. And at the time, he was going to the church in Belmore where Mike Signorelli was.
Oh, okay.
And then I had gone there. And at the same time that I asked him, Nicole had some other universally whatever experience where she felt the same way for her life because we knew each other, but we weren't together at the time. And she asked Anthony the same thing. Hey, I want to go to church. Where should I go? He said, come to my church. That's when we found out we lived 5 minutes from each other, went to the same high school, blah, blah, blah. Her car broke down. And then we went from Smithtown to Belmore, which is a 45-minute drive both ways. And that's basically what sparked our relationship, was driving 45 minutes to church, listening to Mike Signorelli, and then coming back 45 minutes. And then sometimes we'd grab breakfast or lunch or whatever. That's like what started our relationship.
Okay.
So like, but even at that, I think I've told this story before. I don't know if it's on here, so I'll just tell it again. But like literally I saw Pastor Mike, and he's like wearing like a denim vest, sleeves cut off, like you could see his sleeve of tattoos. He's bearded, like he was a touring musician on and off around that time, like epic beard, like whatever. And he's like jamming, lead singing, playing guitar. And then he put down the guitar and picked up a microphone, started preaching. And I was like, pastors can't look like that, because I had no knowledge of anything church. And then like met his wife. I was like, pastors can't get married. Pregnant wife. Pastors can't have kids. Like I literally no idea, nothing.
Okay.
I had nothing. So everything that I am and that I've become is literally from the ground up, thanks to people like Anthony, Mike Signorelli, you, even just for planting seeds, things like that.
That's big. Thank you. I can't
Totally.
take things like that, so I'm just going to overreact to it. Appreciate that, though.
I mean, it's true, though. It's true.
Wow.
I mean, the seeds, the philosophical conversations that we had, even before I started venturing anything church, we talked about different types of books that were philosophical in the sense that made you question things. Me and you would have a lot of deep conversations of just questioning things. How many times we have a haircut that would go for an hour, and then your next appointment was for another half hour, and we just talk for a half hour about whatever. Like I'd be like, oh, I read this book, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. This guy has a conversation with the devil, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, I read this book. I forget what it's called. Lockscrew, some... The guy writes letters.
Screw tapes?
Screw tapes. I know Screw is in there.
C.S. Lewis, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Screw tape letters, I believe.
But shit that makes you think.
Yeah.
You know?
And we were kind of on the same wavelength with like what we were interested in, whether our age or where we had come from. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big part of it.
So it's funny because I'm thinking on the way over here, I'm like, oh, podcast. Like, all right. And then I made the joke to myself, like, is it a session or is it a podcast? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's both. And of course, that's what like I think life is. Like, I don't hold back. I can't really hold back. So because I wasn't always so nice, because of the things maybe I'm blaming that were going on in my life, like it was easier for me to not be nice, right? And I think just looking back and being like, all right, I have a new perspective. I have a new transition. And so why I'm saying that is because so my passion has always been there, but it wasn't good. Now it's like, hey, what are you into? Like, what's the thing that you love? And that's what I do with every guest in my chair every day. Victoria calls me like a game show host, because every person that comes in, it could be the first, like someone said this, these aren't even my words, but it's what happens to me. A guest could come in and say he had lost a family member, and then the next one could be getting married. So it's up to me to kind of hold this like energy, and it's tough. I gulped. It's tough. It really is. That was good. So
did you hear it?
I did. I was giggling, but I heard it. So the energy shifts can be challenging. They can be really fun. And that's kind of why I love my job, because as I'm listening to these things, some people don't say anything, but some people are saying a lot. I'm trying to give like a perfect haircut. I don't want it to not be perfect. So, yeah, it works half days now because of COVID. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what I was saying, but yeah, passion now. It's now leading me to this. I have a vessel with haircutting. It's just like my tool. It's the bus that I get to use to be the way I am with you and other people. So I hope to impact people good. And now I'm married to Victoria, so
yeah, worked out
she's
great.
positive. But I have a lot of thoughts. I want to share a few. The Christianity thing.
Bring it.
Okay. For me, it's always been so like it's not just like a little quick, like we just had a little blimp of like, oh, that was how you felt. Cool. But it was so bigger than that, I think, for you and for me. And I kind of could sense that from you. But for me, from 20 to, 22 to about 20, when me and Victoria were together for a while, I had this like real strong pull, I'd call it, to Christianity and because it was what I knew as a child. Jesus in particular, the story of this guy. It's like, why are we still talking about him? Why is our calendar on his birth date? I don't get it. Like, what's the bit? Why? So those were questions I had. And so for those years, I was like obsessively, like I'd go out to parties and I'd party, but you'd hear me talking about it. Like people would be like, oh, here he's going to be talking about faith or something like that. And I couldn't help it because it was on my mind. I was like, what is this? What is the answer to this? I've calmed down, even though you can't tell. And I don't need to know the answer right now. I don't think I need to know it. So it gives me a little bit of peace. But yeah, it was a big part of everything I did. The books I read, every book I read was about faith or some reference of it. And then when I met Victoria, she was raised without that. Like she came from a dad who had Catholic upbringing, Italian guy, kind of like my dad. And then her mom was from Japan and raised by an American Irish soldier and a Japanese mother. This is Victoria's mom's parents. So she was raised, actually, they practiced this form of Buddhism. And Victoria's family they all still kind of practice that. So Victoria was kind of left to make her decisions, which is really cool for me. I never experienced that. Like it was, you go to church, you wear a tie, and dad's smoking a cigarette in the car, and you can't breathe. And that was the memory that I had. So meeting her was kind of cool. It was like, oh, well, what do you think about all these things that I'm obsessed with? You know? And she had a lot of questions too. So we kind of went down this road of the Christianity. Like we went to True North a lot because it was a church that I had eventually like been a part of. I met some cool people and we had become youth leaders, and I don't know, I kind of swayed from it because I knew I wasn't doing the right thing. And can I say what I was doing on this thing? Can I even say that?
Just as long as you know that people might listen to it.
I am complete. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I don't care.
Okay, thank you. I was smoking a lot of pot. I don't overly drink, not really one to overly drink. I enjoy wine currently. And I currently still do enjoy smoking pot, but it was always way too much. And it's always been because it was my coping mechanism. It was like in high school, I found this thing that kind of numbed my emotions, and it was like, oh, this is great, right? I'm not advocating that, and I think I should say that legally. And I'm not an advocate. No, I'm not sure that I agree with that. But it's something that's
legalize
always been, it. Right. I'm good. I want to do other things.
We don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So either way, it's something that actually has been a secret part of my life. That's cool that we're talking about it. Now it's a little less taboo. People smoke. People have medical issues that they like to smoke. For me, I had belly aches like all throughout school. When I found smoking, I'm like, oh, it's kind of like ease my belly aches. It was interesting, and also was allowing me to escape. As an adult, I know that that's not the way to live, right? And I know I have a child to raise him that way, to say, hey, if you find things, like I'm going to understand you're going to find things, but monitor what you're doing and how much you're doing it, and he'll live that life. It's hard for me to go 17 years in front of his life, but that might happen, right? Why I forget what I'm saying often also is because of that. Yeah, but you're good at bringing it back. You know what I'm saying often, or what I had said a few minutes ago. That's great. It's classic experiment. What does marijuana do to the brain?
You were working in the church, and then you felt guilty about it because you were smoking a lot of pot.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's funny because it just came up for me like naturally. I felt this feeling of like guilt to talk about pot because I know you have a large community around you that are churchgoers and are involved in going to church. And there's such a taboo around that. It's like, well, then they all believe one thing, or they all do one thing, or they're all done doing the things that were hard to, you know what I mean? Like the word saved comes in, and it's like, oh, so you're good. Right. And that's so my walk with faith. Me and Victoria spoke before I came here. I'm like, can I share some stories? Like things are personal, right? Like it becomes to a point where like, oh, that's my life. But if someone could take something from it, then that's why I lived that, right? Maybe it was for nothing. I don't know. We're not sure about meeting yet. We don't know these answers. But so Victoria and I started getting like not leadership. What's it called? Mentorship. So a customer of mine was a Christian guy, a Christian wife.
Is this the guy that like baptized you in his basement?
Yes. I'm glad we jumped there because it would have taken me a while.
I just remember you telling me that story.
So Victoria and I started researching the Bible like with these people at their house. And it sounds funny when you say these people and you talk about the Bible. It's like, uh-oh. But no, it wasn't uh-oh. They were really great people, still are great people. But they had beliefs that maybe I didn't know. I didn't really believe. I didn't. And it wasn't culty. It was just a matter of like things like baptism and like whether or not what that meant. And I'm just like, there's so much fine print. Like, and the other guy said something else. And you're saying this. So it was confusing. It was a confusing time. And shout to Victoria, because she was like walking this with me. She's like, "Oh, you really, something about you is really like pulled towards finding meaning in life, questioning the story of Jesus and all these things, right?" I was really pulled to it. And she was kind of pulled to it too, because of the fruit that, like we always spoke about, fruit that was bared. Like there's so many good things about so many different religions, but what's being bared from it? Like what things come from it, right? Is it good? Is it bad? And there were good things that could come from what we were in research of. So these people, they baptize us. It's so funny to think about that. It's not crazy. It's because there was so much, there was so little ego at that time in my life and in her life. It was like all like, surrender, almost as much surrender as we could possibly have. And that was the story that we were kind of living, like, oh, this is what you do. But it was difficult, and we decided to no longer have sex
before marriage.
Yeah, well, we had been having intercourse,
right?
And then, I mean, to preface the whole story, me and Victoria were with each other for 1 year when I was like, all right, I'm gonna propose because I love this girl and she's not going nowhere. So I proposed on the year of our dating anniversary. So in that time, I don't know the math. Don't know the math. Doesn't matter. We just decided that let's not do that. Because it kind of challenged what we were thinking, what we were practicing, what we were believing, right? I mean, you might not want to share the things that you have gone through, but you've maybe experienced some similar situations.
We did the same thing.
Oh, that's very relieving. I just literally saw. Did you see the weight off my shoulders?
We did the same exact thing.
Well, and that's not something that I've ever told anybody. Maybe my dad, I don't know. My dad grew up with like a Christian belief, so maybe he knows that. But yeah, that's something that was like taboo. I was like, well, why are you doing it, right? What's it going to do if you do it? And are you weird? Like, what's wrong with you, right? All these questions. Mm-hmm. And we were living together.
So were we.
Wow, this is great. I'm glad we're here. Let me take a sip of my drink. So we were living together in this couple. That's where they kind of come back in the story. They had children. One was young, older. And they were just like in disagreements of how we were living. Like, you can't live together and not do that. And it just turned us off, right? Like it would for a lot of people, I'd say. We weren't like, oh, I thought this was about giving. Like at one point in my life, I was so lost. You know this. You contributed to this. I had no relationship. I wasn't with a girl. I was just like a young man who did like to smoke a little pot, but wanted to do something good with his life. And it was collecting donations for my customers and giving it to homeless people on the street, right? Remember that? You gave me shoes. You gave me a whole bunch of stuff. Someone's walking around with your shoes that say Ross.
They have my name on them.
Yep, they were like very
I got Nike ID custom high tops, Air Force Ones.
Yep.
Put my name on them.
And those things
and then I donated them.
Around somewhere, probably really dirty, but they're around.
Yeah.
So that was something that it was always pulled to like something. I don't know why I segued there.
It was about giving.
Yeah, before it was about giving, though. It was about something else. It was just about I thought this was about like that, not, oh, you're not doing the right thing, like finger pointing kind of behavior. But the stories in the Bible, like, I don't disagree with. And it's very contradicting of me to even speak these words, because the way I feel is still pretty in limbo. I'm still figuring these things out, which I hope a lot of people still are. And they don't think they have the answers, because then you So we don't really speak to that couple anymore. I love them. Really shout out to them. Not going to say their names. And me and Victoria did do that, though. We lived with each other. And this is kind of like, you should make a confession booth in here. You should you should put a plexiglass thing because of COVID and because of, maybe we're wearing masks. Maybe we're not.
We're 6 feet apart.
We're 6 feet apart.
Why I turned the table sideways so we're 6 feet apart.
You're smart. But like maybe a curtain would do for a confession. So we maybe made mistakes. I'm not sure. Maybe we did. I don't know. And it was challenging. But
how'd you feel after you made that mistake?
Like the worst person in the
Same.
world.
Dude, I hear you.
I'm glad you hear me. I'm glad I have a friend, and the rest of the world now knows that they have a friend.
Yeah.
2 friends.
Yeah. That was a real thing.
Challenge,
so Nicole and I started dating. And it was like a normal, quote-unquote, normal relationship. We were doing all the things that normal, quote-unquote, couples would do.
Right.
And then we planted V1 Church, or maybe we were in the process of doing that, and I was deep diving into a lot of stuff. We both were. We started seeing a counselor, Bill Hoffman. Shout out Pastor Bill Hoffman. Great guy. Follow him on Instagram. He posts a lot of great stuff. He's got daily blogs and stuff. Really great. But he was like, you guys, you know, you're together and you're dedicated to getting married and all that good stuff. He's like, you should sign like a purity covenant and stop doing that and focus on your emotional health and your actual relationship, because a lot of times when you're two damaged people coming together in a relationship and there are problems that arise, you cover it up with sex or lust in some form, or drugs and alcohol. And so we were like, yeah, we're both pretty messed up. We should do that. So we're like, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. And then so when we got engaged, that was when we stopped. So we were together for like a year and a half or 2 years or something. We got engaged and I was like, all right, let's cut it. And we were both like, yeah, let's freaking do that. And then like a couple months later, we had slipped up and we were like, and then afterwards we were like, fuck,
I hate you. I hate myself.
I hate everything. This is terrible. I feel terrible. And you know, you could say that was a tap on the shoulder from a spirit or some shit like that, whatever. But we felt terrible about it. But then we were like, you know what? We should still stay on this path.
Right.
We should stay on this path. We should keep growing. We saw counselors. We started counseling with them. We started counseling with Mike and Julie Signorelli, who they had just moved here. So thankfully, they didn't have 500 plus 1,000 people in their church that wanted their time. There was just like 20 of us. So I was like, hey, I'll come to your house every Saturday, and Saturday morning we'll have breakfast and talk. And that was like my free counseling session from Mike and Julie Signorelli, which is pretty awesome because they've gone through some crap.
Right.
You know, they've been on the verge of divorce, got married super young. He was a raging alcoholic, like
which is so
crazy
funny. We
stuff.
sat with them and we ran because I'm like, no, I'm not committed.
Yeah.
It was so great. They're like the best people and they have a lot to offer, and they had probably a lot to offer us.
Yeah.
And we were like, I can't commit. You know, that was where we were at that point. But that's funny, yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah. But then for us, it was difficult for me and Nicole because we wound up not getting married for like years.
I remember this.
And it was years and years and years, and it was really, really tough to not do that stuff. And it seems like a blur now. I don't remember years of not doing it.
Exactly.
Like I regret, like I'm like, oh, I didn't, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have sex as much as I wanted to, but like I don't remember years of not having sex.
Right. Exactly.
Like,
yeah,
and
no, you remember right now.
Are we better off? Are we worse off? Who knows? But I think that we're
Doesn't
still
matter.
married and we're still working on our marriage and getting better every single day. And you know, I've also thought about it. I would try to find loopholes in the Bible. Like, I'm not even kidding. And one thing that I will put out there, I'll challenge any Bible theology scholar, is that the engagements or betrothals, when you were betrothed to someone or whatever in Bible times, it was for a few days to a few weeks. Then you got married. You didn't go years without getting married after you were engaged or betrothed.
Well, society in Long Island is a little different.
Right.
Like,
So then it came to us and said, why aren't we getting married yet? It's not because we're not to that level in our relationship. It's because we're broke early 20-something-year-olds.
right.
We don't have the money to have a wedding. For those of you who don't know, I actually, for some reason, have listeners in other states. I don't even know who they are.
Shouts to them.
Shouts, Texas, Ohio, like whatever. It for just a venue can be $30,000, $40,000 just for the venue, just to be there. Forget all the food. Weddings could cost $50,000+ on Long Island. I mean, I like what you did. It was pretty more low key than what I did. I had a ginormous 200-person wedding at a ginormous, beautiful venue.
Awesome.
But
Can't do that anymore.
You guys went out. Yeah, can't do that anymore.
Good
My
thing you
sister
did.
just got married this weekend. We went to the venue. They wouldn't serve us food or drinks because of COVID. Basically did the ceremony there and then went to a restaurant and sat in a littler room and partied there. But you guys did the Montauk thing.
We did the Montauk.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I want to go back in just a few months when we decided all these things. So I was in this man and this woman's house. She was studying. I was cutting his hair in the basement. And I was saying to him, I had this conversation. I'm like, I think about 6 months from now, it's like I'm ready to get married, because it is a financial decision. Like, do you have any money to buy a ring? You don't have any money to buy a ring. And for me, I've been living on my own since about 19. I've been kind of grinding, and a whole bunch of extra savings wasn't always my thing. So a ring was like, there was a big gap between me wanting to get married to this woman who I loved, and not wanting to wait the 2 years, not because of the intimacy part, just because of like, oh, we should get married. Like, why do we got to wait the whole thing? I didn't realize how it works. Like, you have to get a venue. It actually does take time. That's why people wait. They're not just like, oh, I'm saving up money. They're doing that too. But so I told him this. I spoke it to him. I said, yeah, probably in about 6 months I'll be ready. And he was like, oh, that's great, man. And I've always looked at things as like any sign was like anything that I saw was a sign basically, and most of those, all those signs were God. My rendition of God. I was like, oh, this is a sign from God. I want to say like the next day or that day. This is so crazy, but it's not that crazy because this lady kind of knew. So Victoria worked with a woman who was like married to a pastor, involved in the church, and this woman texted me. This was around Christmas time in 2000 and something, and she goes, "Just come over to my house. I have something for you. Don't ask me any questions," or something like that. I'm like, all right. So I just go, and to leave Victoria was like not possible. We do everything together. We always do.
You can't even cut hair not in the same building.
We do everything, almost everything together. We always have. I mean, there is times where we have our own thing, but for me to be like, oh, I got this thing at night, it was weird. I think it was around Christmas time. I blamed it on shopping. So I go to this lady's house, and in the back of my head, I'm like, she might have like an engagement ring for me because like she knows that we're couples of faith and we want to get married. And sure enough, that's what she had. Her and her husband sat there, and they were like, they loved Victoria, obviously. Everyone does. I never met someone that doesn't like Victoria. And they were like, we love her. We love like what you guys are about. And we don't think that like they just like they knew what was going on. They were like, we don't want you to wait to have the money to do something like this. So take this ring. And I'm like, not a good taker. Maybe I take well, but I don't take it don't take it well.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, like keep it. And the guy's there. Like, it's not just her saying it. It's the guy who gave her the ring. The ring was it was kind of gaudy. Is that rude? It was gaudy. And it had us cubics in the inside. It wasn't a real stone. It wasn't a real diamond. But they were like, she hadn't got a new ring at that point. And they're like, I just want you to have it. So I say, okay. I was there for a long freaking time. Long time. They prayed for a while with me. It was great. I left. I lied to Victoria where I was, and then the next morning I'm in my little Volkswagen, and I'm looking at the ring like, no way I have this thing. Because I didn't care about what it looked like or if it had a thing, if it was cloudy. I just wanted to, like, propose. And what's it called? So Victoria comes outside, and I'm playing with the ring, and the little stone wasn't attached to the actual ring. I had it separate, and I fumbled it, and it went in the grass. I never found it. It got lost, and I couldn't now then propose, right? And I'm like, oh, now I got nothing, really. I got this weird big ring, like, so fast forward maybe like a month and a half, 2 months. I was looking at stones, looking at diamonds. I couldn't really afford anything. And my mom sends me a ring that she got when she had me. My dad gave her a ring that had my birthstone in it, a little gold ring with a green birthstone. And I got it in the mail. I'm like, I'm proposing to Victoria today. I didn't like have any plans before this. I called her dad. I didn't even ask. I just kind of told him. I said, I'm proposing to her. I just wanted to tell you. And then he kind of dropped the ball, told Victoria that we just spoke for some reason. Like, he's just like an honest guy. He didn't know. He's like, yeah, well, Chris is calling, is what he said. So we go out to our favorite restaurant, Italy. And I just basically did the worst proposal in the world. I was nervous, beyond nervous. I had this ring that was like not a diamond and this green stone in it. No plans. Nobody knew. And it wasn't the best proposal. I kind of begged her. I was like 2 minutes maybe on my knees where I was just like telling her like why she should marry me. And I could see it in her face like she knew that I was going to do it. And she was kind of like, all right, get up. Like, let's go. So I proposed. She said yes. It was great. Found out that her pops proposed to her mom with the same situation. A ring that he got from his mom that wasn't a diamond. It was cool. So it made me feel good. Right?
Wasn't it freezing outside?
Freezing. Yeah. Freezing. No one was there. I was going, oh, you know the story? This is great.
I feel like you told me it. Great. It was like on the verge of snowing. It was freezing outside.
It was in March. It was freezing. And I was like, we should go to the Chelsea Pier. I heard it's beautiful. And we get there, and there's a steel gate in front of it. It says, closed for the winter. And there was no lights in the street. The only sign I took from that, we were on 23rd Street. Her number's like 3 and mine's 2. And we had a Guinness right after. It was great. That's my proposal story. It was botched. It was great, but it was botched. And I'm going to do it again when she least expects it. And I hope she knows that I'm going to do it.
It was freezing when I proposed to Nicole, too.
Was it?
Yes. It was.
Was it botched? No, I feel like you had it. You have a picture. It's beautiful.
It's crappy cell phone picture in the dark. And I did the thing where we took a selfie and you couldn't see the ring very good. So then I took a picture of her hand with the ring close up, and then I overlaid them so it was one picture. But then the way that I put it, people kept saying it looked like it was my hand in the picture with her ring on it, and people were like, "What the hell is this?"
I didn't pick that up.
Yeah, well, most people did. Most people thought, "Dude, why are you wearing the ring? What is this?" I'm like, you can't freaking tell. I proposed at Kings Park Bluff.
Pretty.
On a whim. Totally on a whim. I had the ring for months. And I was like, I just got to do it. But like, I'm like a homebody introvert. Like, I could get out. I'm a sanguine, so I swing back and forth between introvert and extrovert.
Never heard that word.
Google it. I'll give you a book. I'll give you a book to read about it. But basically, for those who do know, I swing between being extremely extroverted and extremely introverted. So I could go days being by myself and not listening to anybody and just being with my own thoughts, and then I'll have a burst where I want to be the life of the party and blah 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 whatever. So, but for the most part, when it's with Nicole, I lean on her energy because she's way up there all the time. Doesn't need caffeine. Like, she's up there. So when I'm around her, a lot of the times I'm just like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm phlegmatic. Go with the flow. Like, whatever. Don't Google it. It's fine. So I'm like, whatever. Just go with the flow. And then, so I'm like, if I plan something, she's gonna know that I'm gonna propose. I was like, I can't do like a dinner out here or do this. I said, she'll know. There's no way that she won't know. So for like a year, I actually joked, and I've told you this before, where I would joke, I'd be like, yo, what would you do if I proposed right now? Because it would be like a romantic situation, but it was like on her, but like, oh, what would you do if I proposed right now? She'd be like, oh, stop. But then it went on for like a year where we literally, it just deteriorated the romance. So it's like literally we'd be in the supermarket and I'd like bump her butt with like the shopping cart, and she'd turn around and be like, what? And I'd be like, what'd you do if I proposed right now? She's like, shut up. Then it evolved to me literally like fake getting down on one knee to like, just kidding, I'm not, but what would you do if I proposed right now? She's like, shut the fuck up. Seriously. And it got to the level she was just annoyed about it. And then one day it was like really nice. She's like, oh, let's go to the Kings Park Bluff and watch the sunset. And it was her idea. So I was like, perfect, sunset on the beach at the bluff. Perfect. She's like, oh, let's go read, blah, 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 which we had done before. So we pull up and like the sun setting. I'm like, oh, let's go down. Or I'm like, how do I do this? She's like, oh, let's go down to the water. I'm like, perfect. She's leading the way. I had it in my pocket. We're just standing there, and we watched the sunset. The sun sets, and I didn't do anything. I was so nervous. I was so scared. My heart beating out of my chest. I think she even might have mentioned something. Oh, you feel like your heart's beating out of your chest. And I'm like, But she's like, wants me to hold her, but like, because it's freaking freezing, and we're on the beach, and it's November, I think. Yeah, it was November 9th. And she's like, all right, like, let's go back to the car. Like, it's freezing out. And I'm like, no, let's just stay here. She's like, what? I'm like, let's just be with each other. She's like, what are you doing? And then she's like, oh, you better not. I'm like, what? She's like, you better not. I'm like, what? She's like, you better not be like, oh, what would you do if I propose right now? And she starts like making fun of all the times that I obviously did that. And I'm like, fuck, like, what do I do? And she literally goes on a rant for like 3 minutes. Like, oh, that time you're like, oh, what do you do for proposing? Blah, blah, blah. If you did that right now, I'd fucking throw up on your face. Like, and I'm like, are you done now? And she's like, yeah, fine, I'm done. Let's go back to the car. And I was like, no. And then I got down on one knee. She's like, are you fucking kidding me? And then I actually took out the ring, and she's like, ah! And she like freaked out, hysterically crying. I'm like, can you say something? Can you take the ring?
No, crying's good.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah. And Nicole either like laugh cries or it's ugly cry. There's no in between for her. So she's like ugly crying. I can't even understand what she's saying. And I kind of blew it because it was like my stepdad's birthday, and like we went out to dinner with them, and then it's like his birthday, and we're like, what?
But it's a happy moment.
Yeah, it was funny. And I didn't know how to tell. I didn't tell anybody.
Okay.
I didn't tell my parents. I asked her dad for permission on Halloween.
Okay, you asked?
We went to a Halloween party with her dad, and she went to the bathroom. I was like, hey, really quick before she gets back. I was like, can I marry your daughter? He's like, of course you can. I fucking love you. You like my... He gives me a sloppy Italian kiss on the cheek. I'm like, oh, okay, this is okay. Nicole comes back from the bathroom when he's like slobbering me. She's like, what the fuck was that about? I was like, your dad's really drunk. He just wanted... I don't know. But But yeah, so then we go out to dinner for my stepdad's birthday, and I'm like, shit. I'm like, I don't want to say anything. Like, it's his birthday. I was like, maybe we could just like make it obvious so they like see the ring on your finger. So it starts with just like a hand on the table. Ooh, look at the bread. It's nice and warm. Like literally nothing. Nicole orders we went to Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza. She got a sangria with the fruit and whatever, and they give it to like this spirally martini glass. It was like really tall and narrow, and Nicole like. Is like she like my mom, they won't notice. And my mom literally Nicole goes like this. I'm grabbing the mic stand, people. Like one finger at a time. Like that to accentuate look at my finger and my mom goes, "Oh my God. Look at the size of the cherries in that sangria." I was like, "Are you kidding?" And then I was like, "Nicole, we just got to do it. Like, just do it." And my mom's like, "It's not polite to whisper at the table." So then Nicole just slams her hand on the middle of the table. And my mom's like, Seam. And she starts hitting my stepdad in the chest. She's like, what's happening? She's like, look, what the fuck? And they freaked out. There was a lot of freaking out.
Yep.
But it all worked out, right?
That's sweet.
Yeah. Funny story.
It is a funny story. That's great. And you had a lot of anticipation leading up to that moment, just as much as I did, I think. Maybe more, because mine was only about 6 months. But you mentioned my wedding, and that sequence that we just spoke about, like my proposal and all these things that led up to that moment, I wouldn't have gotten married like that without her and her parents. Like, they were just like, listen, we're going to pay for your wedding. And I was like, but no, like I was raised to say no to stuff like this and to like be a proud man and be like, no, I'm paying for it. And that's like what I tried to do. And her dad was kind of like, no, I'm going to do it. And that was very humbling because I'm like, I can't do it. Right. And they want to, and they can. So it was very interesting to accept that like gift. It was definitely a gift because we took our wedding money and we went into business. We didn't buy a house. We went into business. We were like, all right, let's take all this money and throw it into a barbershop, that really old one. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And that was a good decision.
Well, even before that, I'll bring it back.
Yep.
When did you buy your first home? Because you were really young.
Home? You said home?
Yeah. And
so I've been renting.
Wisconsin or St. James, whatever?
You
had a house.
I've been a renter, but I have had these things that are great in my life. I'm still renting. Renting a home. But yeah. The Wisconsin, I think I lived in my friend's backyard. It was like a little beach house, but not by the beach. It was really cool.
Where did you live with the two dogs?
In Ronkonkoma.
Okay.
Ronkonkoma, I had a little bungalow, and it was me and the two dogs. It was really cool. And I used to smoke cigarettes in my living room, like all like just smoke cigarettes inside. It's the most disgusting thing. I haven't smoked cigarettes in 5 years. The best thing I ever did was stop smoking. But yeah, I was a little savage for a while. And then Victoria came in. It's so funny.
How did you meet Victoria?
Oh, that's the best story I have. All right, so bring Mike's Custom Cuts back. So I'm working at Mike's. I'm a single lad, and me and Mike have a cool thing going on. And he just like, he knows me well, right? And he goes to preface, Mike's a married dude. He's established. He's this great man with family and a business. And I looked up to him, right? Anything he said, I was like, okay, great. And so he tells me, he's like, I met this young girl that wants to come and cut hair and like learn. That's never happened before. Like, no girls weren't coming and cut hair at this time. So he was like, yeah, this girl wants to like learn barbering. And she's like, she's around your age. You're probably going to think she's cute. I'm like, so I'm super weird when like I've finally settled down. It took me probably 25 minutes to settle down here. I'm super weird when it comes to things that I like. Like I'm like, I like her. I'm not gonna say nothing. Like a kid, right? So she comes in. I'm like, I'm gonna be the coolest person here by not saying nothing to her. Everyone else is gonna say something to her. I'm not gonna say it, and she's gonna be like, who's that? And that's kind of what happened. I was really quiet, and then we have a funny story that Mike was like busy one day. He's like, can you help Victoria with that fade? And I was like playing the cool card. I'm like, don't just say no, because like it would be cool if you just said no. And I said no. And I'm like, I got something to do. I got someone coming in. I made an excuse. And she remembered that. Like she told me, I don't remember the story. She remembered it. She thought it was like not cool of me. She's like, that was kind of weak. But so then I left Mike's. I was just this girl. We didn't develop a relationship. I saw her at some like hair classes. And then that's when me and Chris were like, let's do mobile barbering and cut homeless people's hair and have a studio together. And then we did that. And
some version of that's still around, right?
In what sense? What do you mean?
The cutting homeless people's hair and stuff.
I haven't participated in a while. And Chris has, I'm not sure if he's participating, but he definitely led that force. He had like a whole like
It was like a crew
of barbers coming from everywhere to like volunteer time, and it was really cool. There was a few funny things that happened that like kind of definitely puts a bad taste in your mouth, because you're like working at the organization, you're there, and they're like taking advantage of services sometimes, right? It's different when you walk up to someone, you're like, hey, could you use a haircut? Like might be cool, and then they're like, oh, this is great. Like it's a very different experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left Mike's, it was kind of that he was kind of like, really, why are you gonna leave? Like this is a great thing here, and he was just about to move into this beautiful location that he moved into. But I'm like, if
next to the watermill, right?
Next to the watermill, Smithtown Boulevard, and I was like, if I don't leave now, I'm never gonna leave. I'm never gonna do the things that I think I should do. So I moved to a Sola Suite, which is a little room with no window, and it's like a.
You guys had a window?
Did we?
It was
the first one had a window.
The first one had a window.
It was so small. Can't even make the size with my hands, but it was very small. And we did that, and that was in Port Jeff. And me and Chris did that for a while. Chris wound up leaving to go to Garden City because it was closer to his house, and it was kind of hard to develop a business in Port Jeff for him. And we remained really cool and close, but it was me at this point. And all of a sudden, I'm walking to Taco Bell one day, and Victoria like walks out. Like she worked at the salon that was directly next door to where I had moved, and she came running out with this extremely huge hug. Like I was like, wow, I didn't know she had that much personality. Like, that's a lot of personality. She ran at me and hugged me, and I'm like, oh, I didn't really know you that well, but hey, what's up? And we just developed this like. So the next day, she came there. I was cutting hair, and she came in. She like came to see my space, and I was. Let the awkward begin. I'm like, oh boy. And she was like, I want to see you cut hair. I'm like, crap. And the room's got no window. I'm sweating. And then we just started hanging out. She was like not shy about she texted me like the next day. She's like, you want to hang out? I'm like, this is so cool. She's not like playing the game. And I didn't play the game with her. We just had this really cool thing. And that's how we met. And we hung out every single day. It's great.
How'd you know she was the one?
I almost like can't share that story.
Oh.
I can, because I can. I will. It's not gross.
Will she be okay if you share it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to do with anything that's like very gross. It's not gross. That's the only thing I wouldn't share.
I'm scared.
I like that you're scared. It's funny. That day that she came in, it's funny how like I'm being honest, but I'm still like I'm lying to you because I'm not telling you all the details. When she had come in that day, I was really high. I had smoked a bowl in my car because that's what I used to do. I used to smoke in between every haircut. I'm like, I get high, I get creative. I thought that was cool. It's not cool. It's cool to be sober. So she had come in. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so high. This is not good. That's probably why I was very uncomfortable, right? And I didn't know if she smoked, and I was like, I kind of like this girl. And if she doesn't, she's going to think I'm super weird because, like, why would you be smoking pot right now? It's weird. Next day, she texted me. She's like, hey, you want to smoke? And I'm like, that's my girl. And I swear to you, I'm like, that's one thing. And so that was like the first little, like, minute. She's cool. Like she's open to like the way I live my life, and she's not going to judge me for the things I do that actually aren't that wrong. And then our first date was the float tank. It was like our first actual date. We went to the float tank, and it was really different. And it was like I didn't see she had no makeup on after. It was like very vulnerable experience. We're like, oh, how was your session? That you floated, right? Have you floated?
No, I haven't.
You haven't floated?
You've told me about it plenty.
Oh man, Ross, you should float after this. It's so good. I've only done it a handful of times, but it was really cool. Really good time. I did it like the day before my wedding because I was bugging out. But yeah, that was the first date, and we've had a really cool thing ever since. We don't do the like church thing right now. As much as that was the foundation of our lifestyle in the beginning, we're just kind of on I went to Japan.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like there's something about all these different cultures that believe different things and do different things that is not wrong. And I grew up to think that was actually wrong, which makes me judgmental, and that's not how I want to raise my child. So that's where I am right now. It's so funny how like I just got really serious because that's how I feel. But yeah, no, I went to Japan. I'm like, yeah, these people are living their lives very different, not doing anything wrong. They just don't believe in the thing that I was taught to believe. So are there different means to the end? Maybe. I still don't have the answer, but it was a really cool experience to see different culture.
Yeah, Japan's tight.
I know you're a weeb.
Weeb.
You're a weeb. A weeb is what is that?
A weeb is a person who's obsessed with Japanese culture.
Right. I've become a weeb because now my child has Japanese culture, inside of him, and I'm just like, oh, this is great. Like,
yeah,
forever we're going to be doing Japanese things.
Yeah.
And he does.
Japanese food, Japanese music, old school Japanese culture, Japanese cars, architecture.
What about
Pokemon.
Japanese things? Did it start for you like an anime? Like this is my introduction to this culture.
It was probably a mix between its general culture and cars. That was like one side of things, and then the other part was like anime.
Okay.
Which were two sides of the same coin. But I
see.
For the past decade, I've been watching the show Mighty Car Mods on YouTube, which is just two bros from Australia that love cars, and it's just all DIY stuff. They build cars, they do weird experiments, like, whatever. And because they're in Australia, it's, a short flight to Japan. So a lot of times when they want to buy a car, they're looking for a car, anything that guzzles any form of gas, it could be a 4-cylinder car, they don't drive them in Japan. So they go to Japan and buy them there, and they're a fraction of the cost of what they would be in Australia, and then they import them to Australia. So, but they've made a few like feature-length YouTube films where they turbos and temples, where they did this crazy just around the country type Japan thing where they went to the rice fields and this monument and that thing, and they just do cool shit, but there's also car stuff going on at the same time. So that was like, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then I've looked into other stuff, and then anime is a big part of it, and I love sushi. That was a big part. That was like another door to like Japanese cuisine like that kind of thing.
I struggled hard with the cuisine in Japan because I still like chicken fingers and fries, like no ketchup. That's what it sucks.
No ketchup?
Nope.
You don't dip it in anything?
It's hard for me to give my son ketchup. That's how much I don't like it. I swear. I don't even like passing it on the table. But I will give it to him. Like, for those that are listening, when he
deprives his kid of ketchup.
Absolutely no ketchup in my house. No, Victoria's obsessed with ketchup. It's funny. But yeah, no, when I was in Japan, I ate the same. It was like I think it was called tonkatsu, something like that. It was like pork cutlet. It was so good. Fried pork cutlet. It was a chicken cutlet, basically.
Yeah.
And I didn't eat any sushi the whole time I was there in Japan. And that doesn't happen.
I thought you were going to say that you had, I forget what the name for it is, but the Japanese fried chicken.
It's probably very similar.
It is so
pork
good.
Cutlet. Oh, yeah.
So
well,
good.
That got me by, and I drank a lot of beers there because they don't smoke
No?
any pot in Japan. You're not allowed to. It's very, very, very frowned upon. So I was like, okay, let me relax. And I drank a lot of beers, and Victoria was pregnant at that moment, and she was getting sick often. It was a very fun trip. It was very fun. And
you had a little mentor-mentee window there with a Japanese barber, right?
I did go to I seeked the barbershop out. It was like probably the best experience I ever had at a barbershop. It's great. Gave me a beer, actually. It's cool.
The first time I went to
so cool.
48th and Tailored.
What? That's on my fingers. That's a throwback.
The barbershop in the Solar Salons with CB. The first time I went there, we drank mimosas after my 9 o'clock haircut.
Wow.
All three of us.
Yeah. And these are the light stories.
Yeah, we're like, for first haircut in 48th and Tailored. Boom.
All right, second haircut.
Well, the second haircut, it was like, yo, we got this espresso machine. It's
move
dope.
to espresso. It's a little more mainstream.
You guys pushed the espresso basically every time I was there. And I feel like CB would you both bust my chops if I didn't want one.
Yep.
You're like, come on, drink an espresso. Come on.
Yeah, it's kind of disrespectful not to. We were hyped up on those things.
I mean, how many you drink a day?
Too many.
A lot.
Too many. But Chris was funny, man. We had such I love that, man. I'd like to be in a conversation with you and him, and he's just great. But
yeah.
We had fun because we were so different, and so different in age. Like he's like older than I was at the time. I'll say it that way. We're the same age now, but he was definitely older than me at the time.
He was more mature.
Yep. And he had just had a baby, but he was funny because he was kind of like chill. In certain
He's a
senses.
different thinker, different way of thinking.
I'm like hot, like super hot.
You're always moving.
Moving, yeah.
You're never not moving.
Not moving. And I don't have like, as much as I interact with people, I don't have strong political opinions at all. Like I'm just still kind of like, you both might have points. I'm not sure yet. I'll get there, right? So those things come up. I'm kind of easy. Those conversations could happen. We could talk about religion because we were all on the same page at that point. That's kind of why we opened it. 48th and Tailored was it was from a scripture. We felt like that was like what bonded our relationship, right? So that's what we wanted to have. We wanted to have a place where people weren't putting other people down and doing the barbershop thing. It was fun.
That sign above your door, keep your pennies, give me change.
Keep your coins, I want change. Yeah.
Something like, yeah. That was good.
Who was that? Banksy.
Yeah, it was like a homeless man holding a cardboard sign, and that's what it said.
Right, and that's what it's so funny is everything that we talk about actually comes back to like my beliefs, like those. The reason that we had the place and the things we were doing, and the reason I believe that those things are good, is because what we did was good. Like
Yeah,
we did good stuff. All right.
Well, one of the things that attracted me to Mike Signorelli as a person was his guitar. Even to this day, that's the same guitar that he used when I first met him. I don't even know how many years, 7 years ago, or however long it's been. It says it's a plain. It says remember the poor on his guitar, like in big bold letters. And even when he was touring with his band, that was something that they always kept in the forefront, was always trying to do something good. And when he came back to New York, it was because he was helping. Was it when he came back or when he first came here? One of the times when he came here, the reason was being he volunteered with an organization that was helping people after Hurricane Sandy, whose houses were destroyed. So he was like here with like work boots, just manual labor kind of thing. And he was a pastor in another church and a professor in Indiana State University. Like,
Wow.
But for him, same thing. I mean, he's now with his charity organizations attached to it, Operation Impact, that whole nine.
Wow.
But the same thing. It was that culture of generosity. I feel like brings people together.
There's deeper roots in all these stories. Like, because you even mentioned like he had a past with alcohol, whatever. I don't know his story, and I'm sure he shared it.
Wild.
But, yeah, I'm sure it's great too. But there's something in those struggles that if you can come out of, that there's greatness to be done, there's greatness to be had, and like it kind of motivates you to not be so shitty. Like once you come out of being shitty, you're like I was at a party last night, and I'll drink wine, I'll have a good time, and if I'm driving, I'm definitely not over drinking. That's a glass of wine's fine. My buddy's like, why aren't you drinking tequila? He's like, you used to drink tequila. I'm like, I used to be a dickhead. Like, yeah, I did used to drink tequila, but those were my words. I used to be a dickhead.
Yeah.
And he laughed. He's like, wow, that's funny. You're right. And he appreciated that I wasn't, cheersing with everybody just because of that. So, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah. So covered. Yeah, you got your barbershop. I think one thing that I felt was interesting, just your verbiage of what you said before, is that you had made the decision, and I don't think you actually said it here. You said it in the text.
Okay.
You made the decision to gamble on yourself.
Definitely.
Was that full on passion? Was that like
I know what it
you
was.
had belief in like what you were doing, or
it was so I'm doing this thing with my hands. It was a spectrum. The spectrum was like percentage of naiveness. Like I was 24 years old when I opened solo with Chris, and I remember being like, oh, it's cool. I'm 24. Like, and even
24 and I own a business.
I own a business, but barely, right? It was a little room. And then, but going back and not for too long, like the barbering thing was not cool. When everyone was going to college, every parent would say, what are you doing? Where are you going? And I'd say, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to be a barber. And they all had the same response. Even my dad owned a salon. He's like, really? You going to do barbering? They do $10 haircuts. And they did at that point. They did do $10 haircuts. But I just, a little bit of like, oh yeah, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway kind of was in there. So the spectrum was naiveness. I was just like, let me try. Ballsy. I've always kind of been a little ballsy with my decision making, and I always had a little bit of belief in myself, like just do it. Like, what do you have to lose? Let's try it. So yeah, all those things helped me kind of just be like, this might work and it might not work. And so that led me to Tom's barbershop. This old man had a barbershop in St. James forever, and I'm sitting outside one day, and it was Saturday. Me and Chris had just went over numbers, and we're like, we're not making any money. And I'm looking at this place. I'm like, wow, there's 6 chairs in there. We could maybe like take over and make money, right? And then I went in and I talked to him and developed a relationship with this guy. And Chris was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Like, it's not what I want to do. I don't want to deal with all the people and management. And he's like, I get why he said that. And it's still in St. James, hard to get to. And then I took the place over. It's so cool how things work out. I just left solo. I'm like, all right, I should leave. Like, I'm by myself. And then I moved to Tom's, and we did the thing with my wife. And then even deeper, I had a partner. It was me, Victoria, and Sonny, my best friend. We don't talk anymore because we clashed in that business. And another lesson to be learned. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. And I'll revisit that chapter soon. I think that's something I have to do. Like, I owe it to people to do that, and to myself. But it led me here, and now we have a salon with like all these people in it that are running around working for us. Like, they believe in what we're doing, and it's really cool.
I like your team huddles that you have.
We don't have them often. That was our first one.
Oh,
We
well,
have this-
I
we-
saw the video
that's
of,
great.
I think it was Victoria posted it, like the
Okay.
story of you guys all sitting in a circle and there was like game plan powwow.
Everyone was writing their fears down in that video. And it's funny because we had to start that meeting with apologizing for never having a meeting. Like, we've never had a meeting
Well,
here.
I mean, you got that place and then COVID hit, right? So like,
No, there's times for us to do things. COVID was a weird blessing in the sense our business was so new. There was so much to work on that we were avoiding by going and cutting hair every day. That being home with our child, when he takes a nap, you're like, oh, let's do the things that we were missing. So making a website and doing these things happened. And then, yeah, we were able to have meetings. It's fun. Team's amazing. And we got a lot of things to do from here on, like a lot. Victoria cried the other night. And I'm like, and I didn't ask her permission to share that, but she was like crying over, just we are so emotionally wrapped in our business. Like, people come in it that work there, they come there, they work there, they appreciate the place, they love it, they want it to be clean, right? They value it, but we have this like real emotional and financial tie to this place. So she's like really getting worked up because things are changing. Like, our front desk girl had to leave she's as a child at home, and things happen. And I was like laughing. She's like, "Why are you like?" I'm like, "Because that in about maybe 5 months, you're gonna look back at this night and you go, remember when we were crying about this, and now we have this great thing that happens." Like, so if you can really grasp onto those moments that have happened and future opportunities for those moments to continue to happen, then you won't. But she's usually the one picking me up. Like, I can't paint that picture. She's always the one like, "Chris, stop being like so upset."
yeah.
So yeah, that's that thing. That's my life. That's my whole life.
Yeah.
There's things missing, but that's definitely my whole
So
life.
I wanted to touch on
Please.
the fact that you're like a quote, I don't know if it's real, master barber, and you like traveled to other parts of the country, right, to do these barbering Olympics competitions.
I did. My whole shirt was full of sweat. It was very uncomfortable. I didn't want to be there. Just like now, like I'm doing I'm like, podcast, I gotta talk. Like, it's like embarrassing. But I'm like, no, just do it, because if anything ever comes up like that again, you're gonna be ready for it, right? And I took that from
If a barber competition ever comes up again,
no, it
life or
wasn't
death
that.
situation.
I took the barber competition as like, well, if there's a whole bunch of people waiting and watching me, I'm not gonna be that awkward anymore because I just did it in front of 500 people. So yeah, I did first barber battle was Mike like made one from Long Island. So there was a bit of an asterisk there. A lot of people were like, yeah, it was Mike's barber battle. You won it. I'm like, yeah, but I actually won it. I definitely did just win. And that was great. Like, I won like $2,000. It's like, what? So I found interest in that too. It wasn't always that big of a cash prize. And then he had invested some money into me to take a flight to Florida for this other barber battle. Me and him went, and I won that one. I'm like, wow, I'm good. I'm not that bad at this. And so the beginning when we talked about passion and sports, like, I sucked at a lot of things, but I tried really hard, and now this is my thing. This is definitely my thing. And
master of your craft.
I spent a lot of time doing it, and it's a good distraction maybe at times. Like, getting back to work post-COVID was like, post-quarantine, I apologize, is a blessing. I'm so honed in on like my actual physical labor and speaking to these people about their losses and gains that I'm not really worried about everything else at the moment. So yeah, I barber battled. I got two trophies.
Big trophies.
2
One of
for
them's like 4 feet tall, isn't it?
They are in the shop in display at EQ Salon in St. James. But real quick, me and Victoria did a barber battle together. That was pretty funny. This is so ridiculous. So Travis is my best friend, Travis Trims.
Travie Trims.
Shout out to Travis Trims.
Who he's also a very good barber who's even, I would say, more methodical than you when it comes to making it perfect. Like, I see the sweat dripping off his forehead. Sweat dripping off his forehead when he's like,
yes.
Like, the first time he cut my hair was because you weren't there, you were on vacation or something. And afterwards, I literally said, I was like, holy shit, dude. I was like, you're like OCD with it, but I appreciate it. Love that guy.
I love that guy too. So he was my best friend. I needed a model to go to Connecticut, right, to do this barber battle. And I'm like, Travis, like, he's an Asian guy. What about like the what's the movie? The Interview with James Franco
Kim
and
Jong-un.
But the movie version,
not
the actual Kim Jong-un, the guy in the movie.
Yeah.
That was my take. And I'm like, I'm gonna do his, because the category I had chose was like fantasy theme. It had to be a character, a real life character or a fake character. And I'm like, he has an iconic haircut. Everybody knows he's got this ridiculous skin fade, and he parts it in the middle. This would be great. And I had this whole outfit for him. He had a badge. Like, he looked like he was in the military. And so I get up there, and the Connecticut Barber Battle is a huge. There's like a few thousand people there. She did a Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. You seen them? I'm sure you've seen the movie.
Yeah.
So she did a female model with a really cool, crazy. It was really awesome what she did. It wasn't as ridiculous as what I did. Didn't take either. So, but after the battle, you have to walk into the front of the stage in front of all of these people and explain it. So I walk up there and I stumble over everything that I was saying. I tried to say that it was from the movie, you know, what I just told you. Nobody really got it. No one really thought it was funny. Because, you know, the Kim Jong-un's like a pretty bad guy, right?
Yeah.
He's not a funny guy. And having Japanese in-laws now, I didn't realize the connection of like what's been going on. I kind of dropped the ball on this one. But I thought it was like comical. Interview was a great movie, right? It was a satirical take on a hair model. Anyway, the judges didn't like it. And I didn't win. And it was a really fun experience. That was great.
Last time you cut my hair, you said you had a story to tell me, but you were saving it for the podcast.
Honestly,
yeah.
It was the story of how Victoria and I decided to not have sex during our marriage, because that's a big thing. That's like it's been a part of my life that no one knows, and I think other people can relate to it, whether they've chosen to do that or not. And what was cool about that I didn't speak about, that's Victoria now.
Do you have a time limit here?
I'm Sunday.
This is one of my days. You're off Sundays and Mondays, right?
Sundays and Mondays. You can find me Tuesday through Saturday. But no, there was a lot of really good things that came from that. We realized, like, without being intimate, that we really wanted to be with each other. Like this is definitely who I want to be with. Like, you're annoying, and I still want to be with you. Coming from her perspective, that's how she felt.
I remember sitting in Tom's barbershop, and you were telling me about that without revealing details.
Okay, great.
But you were like,
so I have shared this with you.
Yeah,
okay, good.
And you were like, for me, like, I feel like I made the decision, but like for her, she was like, she's new to this kind of spiritual stuff, and she's still learning. She doesn't really understand it, but she like agrees with it because she's got a good attitude. But I feel like it's really hard, and like you were going on about it.
It was, and she really loved me, man. Just to think that, because she wasn't like blindly like being led by me. She was like, oh, I really think that what we're doing is great. Like the beliefs that this could be a potential platform for our family, not platform, but
foundation.
Foundation, thank you, for our family that we want to have, and it could be a positive one. Yeah, so shout out to Victoria for holding it down.
Whose phone is, or who's calling you right now?
Well, Gio's naps up, but it's but now we have this amazing child, man, and we did those things, and like great things have come. And I don't remember those 6 months. I don't. I just know what I have with her, and I know how special it is because we were able to do some things that I know every couple wasn't doing. Mm-hmm. I know. So it's pretty cool. Like throw yourself in the fire a little bit.
Agreed.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
So growth, personal growth. Where are you at with that? Because you've always had an open mind every single time for a long period of time.
Okay.
Every time I sit down in your chair, you'd be like, "So what are you reading?"
Well, because I'm
just go about it.
I'm a host. I'm a game show host. I know that.
Yeah, I know,
that
but
you
like,
read, and I kind of read too. So that's
right,
what
but
we would do.
A lot of times you'd come back and you'd be like, "Oh, I read this thing, that thing." I'd be like, I'd tell you about an anime, Kimi no Na wa. You'd be like, I watched 10 minutes of it. I couldn't do it. I shut it off. I didn't know anime was animated.
and in Japanese. But so the growth and the growth mindset does go back to Victoria. When we first Christmas Eve, I had for about 3 years in a row by myself was going to shelters and donating my time. Was it Christmas Eve? Christmas mornings and Thanksgiving mornings is when I did it. For me, it was great because I wasn't getting along with my family, right? And I wasn't sitting home sulking in my sorrows, which we all can do. I was like outwardly, I was doing something for other people, and it was returning. It felt good. Yeah. So when I met Victoria, she was kind of like, you're not gonna go to your family's house. It's kind of weird. Like, you okay? Like, I am okay. I'm gonna get through it. Now I go. I just want to clear that up. I go now, and it's great, and we love each other. But at the time, it wasn't all rainbows, and she came to my house and gave me this book. It was called The Four Agreements, and at this point, Ross, I had never read a book Never finished a book. Like the book we'd read in high school, I'd like audio it to the end to just say that, just to follow along. And even most of the time I wouldn't do that. Didn't read a book.
Same.
So I'm like, A, I'm going to impress this girl by reading this whole book in one day. B, I think there might be something good in here. And C, I got nothing else going on, right? So on the train from my house to the city and back, I read the whole book. The beginning, I didn't understand it all. It was all about like, so coming with the background of my Christianity, like all these books were actually the devil. The way that I was brought up, right? Those things weren't right. Like you don't need to grow outside of who you are.
The only book you need is the Bible.
The only book you need is the Bible. That's the simplest form I could put it. So it was kind of like taboo to read a book that was about growth mindset. And as I'm reading it, I did take some good things from it, and I'm like, wow, I can read. Like it blew my mind that I read a book. So then from then on, it kind of sparked like this whole, I'm not stupid. And people have been agreeing with me that I've been stupid because my grades have been bad, and I'm not. And this is great. And I'm growing now for myself and not just for her. And then from there was like, what was it? I think you told me to read it about relationships. Love languages.
5 love languages.
That was like my favorite. And I started like going, wow, there's so much information that I'm not taking in that I could be taking in. And then thank God for audio, because I don't like reading that much. Some people do. I like to go to work and listening to a podcast or a book. Hopefully someone's listening to this.
Yeah.
This nonsense.
There's good stuff in here, man.
I know. So yeah, the growth thing is definitely something I wasn't familiar with. And Victoria, this is like the last story that I got in my chamber that I feel is it was a tough experience in my life. Victoria went to this program where it was a personal development workshop. A bunch of strangers. She didn't know anyone there. It was this thing, and it was great for her, and it did a lot for her. And when I had my thing with my last partner, who was my best friend, I wasn't in a good place. Victoria's like, why don't you go to the thing? Why don't you go to the thing? And I'm like, no, I'm a Christian. I don't do that stuff. And really, that's like what I was feeling. And finally, I'm like, no, I'm not in a good place. I'll try something. So I went, and it was 2 hours long. And the first day was 2 hours long. It was a whole weekend experience. I paid $500 to be there, and I took off all week. So I was pretty committed. And I had a child at the point. I had a son at home. Because I remember that was part of the excuse why I left. So hour 2, I'm like, I am not sitting here and sharing my stories or listening to anyone's. I'm out. And I literally ran down 12 flights of stairs away from my problems. That was when I'm like, wow, something's going on, right? And that's when I started going to therapy, and a lot of things changed for me at that moment, because I'm like, if I can't sit through that, something needs to be worked out. And that was like, I'll probably still have to do that. Like, I probably have to go back and finish it. But it was all about it was this growth opportunity, and I just didn't want it. I wasn't ready. So, anyone who's listening, it's like, go at your own pace, because you can come back to things that you once thought were wrong or not for you. And I spoke a little bit about ego. It was definitely what it was. I was just like wrapped up in who I thought I wanted to be and how I had seen life up until that point. But yeah, I was pretty depressed after I left. She's like, you left? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And then I figured it out. Like, I really did. I really feel like it could have been great to go through it, because I feel like I would have learned a lot. But funny story.
I've been there.
Have
I
you?
think a lot of people have been there.
What do you mean, running away completely from
that? Everyone has run away from their problems. If there's anyone
Physically?
listening to this that says they've never run away from their problems, like, you're a dirty liar.
Not I.
But also, when it comes to coming to terms with the fact that you need personal growth, because it'll be better for you in any way, shape, or form, I think we can agree your relationship, not only with your wife, but your entire family is now better, your business is better, et cetera, et cetera. Everything's better because you've decided to look inward and pull some crap out and look at different things and grow in different areas. But when I don't even know how I got there. Damn it.
I won't help you bring it. I will
do this
not.
too much.
I have no help for you.
But when it comes to so I've been there.
Yes.
So I've been in that same scenario. I didn't have good relationships with anyone in my family, my parents, my siblings, no one. I was in a toxic relationship. I hated my job. I hated my day-to-day, that cycle I was talking about, partying all the time, like, just hated it. And then when I first started going towards that, I was like, oh, I could learn some things, and I forget who said it. It's like in the quote section on my Facebook, which no one knows exists, but you can have a quote section on your Facebook that's like buried in your about me. But it's what you learn after you know everything that counts. And I forget who said it, something like John Maxwell or something like that. But it was a lot of ebbs and flows because of pride and ego. And I had a lot of pride and ego, still do, but it's a more healthy amount.
Like what? You mean just like you think it was just defending the behaviors that you once had?
Yeah.
Or, right?
Oh, I don't need to learn that, or I kind of know that already. And a list sitting in on a seminar like that and being like, this is kind of trash. I'm gonna leave. Like, I don't need to hear this kind of thing.
I already know what they're gonna tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most people feel that way, not only about growth, but it could be about a lot of things in their lives. In terms of, I don't need to listen to what's happening right now. I got this. A lot of people like to think I got this. That's what it comes down to. A lot of people say I got this. It could be spiritual.
Yeah.
It could be relationships. It could be growth.
Do you think
business.
it's a masculine trait? Do you think everybody has this trait?
No.
Do you think that changes the behavior? Coming from
maybe as being a man, you have it in a different way, but women have pride and ego also. It just comes from a different place. But I think, that makes a good point. Like when you're a man, you think like, I've got to be strong.
Supposed to know this.
I can't be emotional.
Right.
I got to just do it, and I got to be the man, and blah, blah, blah. And I got to be a certain way, act a certain way. I got to be cool,
you
like
pointed
whatever.
At me when you said cool. Well, also, when you said drugs and alcohol previously, you pointed at me.
This is how I talk with my hands.
No, I like it, though.
I do this.
I'm listening.
It's like a whole hand. It's not a finger.
Okay.
It's my whole hand
It was a
open.
pointer. Yeah. Well, I'm listening, so
but
we're good.
But yeah, no, that's a big part of it. And Nicole's got issues with pride and ego too. I think, but for her, it just comes from a different place. For her, it's more of, for both of us, it's a defense mechanism because of how we were raised with different things. We grew up in a vastly different home, but like for me, it was like early divorce, new families, like. My mom had high expectations. I had a stepbrother who's the same age as me who was like, I was never like the best in school. I had no desire to try. I hate authority, etc., etc. But my stepbrother, like, smoked a lot of pot and partied a lot, and his grades were absolute trash.
Oh,
so like
my guy.
But so like because he was worse than me, he got the negative attention from our parents.
Okay.
Of like, you gotta pick your shit up. And like for me, I got away with like B's and C's and D's because it wasn't as bad as him. That kind of thing. So I grew up from like a place of like stepbrother privilege because I didn't have to deal with that. But then it also hurt me in a lot of ways because then I went through a large portion of my life believing that I was able to just get by without working hard. So it would go into my job and it would go into my relationships and it would go into different areas of my life where I thought I didn't have to put as much effort as other people because I just have a better aptitude. And if other people are doing worse than me, why should I try to be the best if I could just get by doing the bare minimum?
So funny.
That spilled into every portion of my life, really, like I just said. And yeah, and that was for me. And then for Nicole's parents stayed together but had a tumultuous relationship, but they just tried to stay together for the kids. I don't know the actual story, but Nicole was like, I think 17 or something when they finally decided to split. But like abuse, verbal, like physical stuff, like drugs, alcohol in the house, like crazy, crazy lifestyle. So for Nicole, it's more of a defense mechanism where like I need to protect myself from that person or that information or that relationship, so it could be pushing people away. So it's a different form of it. And if you read Napoleon Hill books like Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind and can't think of the other one, but there's like two main headliner books that he has, but he talks about how there's a healthy way to address your pride and ego to turn it into a positive, to turn that like people think pride and ego and a lot of the times negatively,
right?
But like you could be a man's man and have good pride and ego, and people look at that guy and like, that guy's got freaking pride in what he's doing. And it's more of like a passionate pride and a confident pride kind of thing. You just read the books. It's good stuff. But yeah.
Will. I know Victoria's reading that.
Which one?
Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, really?
Loves it.
It's fantastic.
I have it.
And it's like 70. I love those books that are like
Maybe
70 years old.
Right. I might pop that in.
Yeah.
On.
It's good. It's a good one. That's one that you can read a couple times. Like, you read it every couple of years or whatever, and every single time you get something different out of it. Like, Napoleon Hill was the OG of writing self-help books.
Mm-hmm. I've heard this.
Yeah.
I know, I've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
But so same thing though. I'm getting out of it. Feels good. Because I mean, mine was a mechanism for. I mean, selfishness for me was my survival mechanism. It's like, well, no one's gonna do nothing. I got it, right? And that I got it turned into kind of selfishness, right? And then when you have a relationship, you have to share things. You can't be so selfish. You can't hold things in the way you did when you were just like figuring life out yourself. So the accountability that I've found with getting married, and I think when I was in Tom's barbershop, working next to 90-year-old guys who got married after 3 months and been married for 80 years, I was kind of like, well, this is so with all these influences, it's just interesting that I know how important that foundation in my life is. That's why I'm the person that I am, which I think I'm happy about the guy I am today. I wouldn't have had this podcast with you if I hadn't have been, and if this was a little while ago, I'd say, nah, I'm not going to share those stories with you. So, yeah, life's a journey, man.
If you could give advice to your younger self, or even just people that are in maybe a similar position to where you think you were, or that kind of thing, where you got to, how you got to where you are now, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say, two pieces. Stop smoking cigarettes. That'd be the first thing I would say. And a piece of advice. I was very angry, like super angry. I don't know everybody knew it, and I know that of you, and I don't know that of you because I see you. I'm like, Ross is the best storyteller in the world. He's great. He's like in a good mood. He's a nice guy, right? He's in this good relationship.
Thank you.
But you don't see.
I have
those
to verbally
things.
say thank you. Someone complimented me on a podcast, and I didn't verbally say thank you. And Nicole's like, you didn't even freaking thank him. So thank you for that, Chris.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I mean,
thanks.
Thank you for thanking me. Like I said, remember, I don't receive well. Like I'm just gonna.
I don't receive well either.
Overreact to it.
People give me gifts. I'm literally the OG. Like an avocado. Thanks. Like
No,
that's
keep
how I react.
Keep it. What was I saying?
Advice
for myself or people
someone
like me.
Similar position. You were angry.
So I was very angry. I got arrested for selling pot in high school. So it was like I was a criminal in my mind, and the people around me, I was kind of a criminal. So I would say, like, the advice would be not do those things and not make those mistakes, but just believe, like, hold a strong belief in yourself, which I did. Like I'm here today because I've kind of always believed in myself. I more so do now. So it's just really believing that, not that you're doing the right thing, but that hold on, because like you ever hear people tell you how great of a person you are and be like, how do you see that? Like, people see that in you, and you might not see it. So you, like, just being the person that I know other people see me to be in the good way, that's who I'm trying to be. So I would say that.
That's interesting. Strive to be the people that people see you as.
Yeah. Like, you hear your wife say it to you all the time. Like, even if you're not doing the best, it's like, no, I know this of you. And you're like, wow, you see that in me?
It's funny. I wanted to write like an interesting Instagram bio like a couple months back, and I just wanted it to be like all the things that I am, so people could, like, at a glance see who I am, like husband, funny, creative, storyteller, whatever kind of thing.
Yep.
But I asked my followers, people who know me, and I said, what are some things that you describe me as? And I got actually like an overwhelming response of people, and I like compiled it together in a spreadsheet, and I put like the top 10 on my thing. But what some people thought of me, I was like, I've never thought of myself that way, like in a good way. Like, he's like, I don't know, whatever it was, like always positive and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? But like, that's, it goes back to what
It's
you're
in
saying.
there, though.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
you
in
might
there.
not acknowledge it,
I'm
but-
positive when I'm around him, apparently.
Right. It's in there. So yeah, being the person, striving
Always
to be the person.
smiling.
I would put that in there too.
I've got rest in
I
bitch
was on
face,
the
man.
top 10. I put something for, I don't remember what the answer was, but it was something
You
nice.
put storyteller, I think.
Storyteller. That was easy.
I wrote teller of stories, I think,
Okay.
in my bio.
Oh, you're welcome. You can quote me anytime you like.
Yeah, thank you.
And you can use any quote from here if you're interested.
I'm going to post this online.
Yes. Is it live now?
No.
Oh, we're not live yet. All right, cool.
No.
That's even better. I was gonna ask, but I'm like, it's better not knowing. It's the same though. But yeah, thank you for having me, man. You have any questions for me that you wanna?
I got two more questions.
Oh, I'm not rushing.
Two more questions I want to hit you with, because we did talk for a while. I don't even know how long it's been.
Yeah.
But
I had a coffee on the way over here. It was good.
long-term goals. And that could kind of lead into like legacy. Where do you see yourself
So
going?
I have a problem with legacy.
Okay.
I have an issue with it. I'm trying to get past it.
Share it.
Because I don't know who's the legacy for yet. Is it for me to be proud of, or is it? But I'm starting to understand. Like, I have a child now, so the things I do are going to affect him for as long as he's alive, and then he's going to pass that on. So my legacy now is like, that's what's important. Is like, the man that I am today is the man that he's going to see, and that's what he's going to bring into the world. Like, I think that I heard someone talking about, we're so quick to want to change our children's behavior, especially when they're toddlers and they're flipping out, and you're like, that's ugly behavior, and I probably would get a beating for it, but I don't know what to do. But regardless of what you do, your children always wind up a little bit like you. So if you just work on your own stuff, like, this isn't my words, this is something that I've exposed myself to. But if you work on yourself hard enough, and you and your wife are doing that, or you split, you can't be doing it together, you do it separately. That's the most important part of legacy. Because, like, accolade wise, like, I don't know, a bunch of salons would be cool. But that's been done. It's nothing new. It's really just the impact that I have on people individually. Like, if you said that I helped you be the way you felt I helped you be, that's huge. That's big. Someone texted me and Victoria the other night. We both cut this man's hair. I did his beard, she did his hair, and he was getting married or something. And yeah, marriage. And he texted us both separately about how that day impacted him in a certain really positive way, and it's the best. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't know if that answers your question. Long-term goals, like, I really want to do a mobile barbershop. Like, we still didn't do it. It's illegal in New York State. It's still the dream. I think we could franchise. I think we could do big things. But I have a lot to focus on right now, and that'll come. That's long-term. Yeah. For recently, this is deep. I'm not going to go far with it, but it's deep. I was afraid of death for a really long time up until recently. And I've recently just been, like, enjoying life more. And that fear was holding me back from setting goals. Like, wow, we're all going to die? And then you go to therapy, and the guy's like, all right, but relax, because most people live till they're like 80 years old. So, cool.
You got time.
I definitely got time. I got a lot of stuff to do. But I'll let you know when I want to do those things.
Sweet.
That's it. That's all I got. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Any other funny stories or anything?
Funny
I feel like you're chock full of them.
I have so many stories that I can't share. I have so many stories that I don't remember, and I have so many stories that are like other people's stories because of barbering. You hear so much stuff. I love that. I love that you hear so many things. Other funny stories. The things that I'm coming up with are so inappropriate.
All right, so we get it's fine. Another time.
Do you have any? Because you have a lot. Just give me a good one. Like,
I don't know.
Like, soften it up. Like, what do we got? You have one?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. What is it? I love it. You have like a row of
it's
these.
only one actually coming to my brain.
Yeah, what is it?
Have I ever told you a story about how a spider bit my dick?
Yes.
I have? Okay.
Yes.
So then we won't share that one. I honestly want to share that story with someone that's never heard it on the podcast.
It's strange that I know that story.
You know what? I feel like I told you that story.
You tell your barber things, I'm telling you.
With CB and Tyler Reinig there.
Okay, at Tom's when it was brown, like when it was like
maybe.
Paneling, I kind of could picture the moment.
Because I remember staying there for the entire time that you cut Tyler's hair.
Because you tell great stories, and like I was busy, so it's like perfect. Actually, you should work with us. You should be there. It's like, oh, and you just tell stories, and like get stories from people, and like let them. So I don't have to talk. This could be a job. We'll talk offline. I'll talk offline.
All right. Well, for everyone listening, thank you for listening. You'll have to wait till next time to hear the story of how a spider bit my dick. Yeah. So plug your stuff. Plug your handles, your business, all that stuff. Everything you're doing.
We are the Hybrid Salon, EQ, the Hybrid Salon. Our website is thehybridsalon.com. Right now we're running a promotion. If you're going to see orange bracelets around, this promotion is basically I give it to you and you tell your buddy, oh, I go to this place, it's great. When you go to them, if you have this bracelet, that money gets donated to a foundation called Child Help. So we're influencing giving, not getting. Like, you get Groupon people are kind of Groupon people. But people that want to give for their first time with me, because, That's just a really good way to attach ourselves with good clients. So that's what we're doing right now. We're running that promotion, and so you would be contributing that $40 for the service straight to Child Help, and that's what we're doing. And we're in St. James at EQ salon.eq is our Instagram. Yep, and it's the best place in the world. I would say it's probably the best place in the world.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
you got some good people there,
but no high expectations.
I mean, it's pretty good.
It's coming along. We've been open since January. COVID,
I like the vibes.
3 months.
I'd said it before, I really like how it transitions differently. Like you're in the front lobby and you got a little vibe. Then you go to like the salon area and you got another vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to the barber area, you got another vibe. I like it.
I appreciate that because I feel like I set that vibe. Victoria does everything in the business, and only thing I do is like, what's the vibe? And I got this little app on my phone, and I just made the store one day. I'm like, this is how our space should be. She's like, yeah, great, because she don't like to think of those details, and she'll like to agree to them, but she's not interested in coming up with the layouts. So she really runs our business, and I'm like, trying to think of the things. So I appreciate that you said that.
Yeah,
the layout was pretty strategic, but I actually made mistakes. Like, of course, right? You make mistakes. And I see it. I'm like, unused space, an extra wall. We'll get there. Not in a rush.
Awesome. Well, that's it.
Beautiful.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And anyone out there listening, I love you.
Love you too. This is going to change someone's life.
Okay. Yeah, I know. That's why I said it.
That last 3 words.
I love you.